Welcome, great people. Welcome on our podcast. That is the Malemo Conversation Space. This is a space that lets you communicate, lets you have a conversation on what do you feel, how do you feel, and what are the current things that are taking place and going on in the space of maybe that is the economic space. List a bit in a small amount, maybe in the political space, but mostly we are dumbly focused on the economic space and the current matters that are happening. That is on the social economic space and what have you. That is what is trending and is of importance. That is to us as a people, how does it affect us as an individual? And here on this podcast is being able to get a space that you can be able to that is have a free conversation without victimization, without maybe someone thinking of who is this guy, what does this guy do, and how does he where is he coming from, how many people are following you, what is your following. Because most of the time people will tend to ask you, you want me to give you space, I have no problem with giving you space, but what is your following? How many people are following you? What is your influence in the community? On this platform is not all about that. It's about what is the brain behind your formation. What is your idea and what do you think? Can that idea be able to engage, have a conversation on it? Wherever you are, whatever you do is none of our business. We care about the idea, the revolution that you bring on the table, and the patience to be able to have a clean, good, and well-enabled society where every person has an opportunity to be able to make a decision basing on the information available, but not basing on whom do you know and how do you know that person. The big question tonight on our table is about the sale of Safaricom PLC shares of 15% by the government of the Republic of Kenya. So can we be able to understand what is this Safaricom share sale? And we take the conversation away from the boardrooms of politicians and the boardrooms of people who have personal interests and personal issues, and be able to bring this conversation to you as an independent body, as an independent space where we are going to act on the available information. So can we just take a bit of our time to be able to understand Safaricom PLC, and most especially is on the part of shares, and how did this company maybe start the story of shares, and how did the government arrive at 35% shares as of today? There is something called an IPPO. An IPPO, Safaricom itself, this is a company that existed under a Vodafone South African company that existed from 1997. 1997, Safaricom was under Vodacom. But as time went by, there were a lot of evolutions that happened within the sector and within the company, where Safaricom had to come out and now become a standalone, an enabler of communication in the Republic of Kenya, an enabler of a conversation where it has brought a lot of revolutionary ideas, that is including the first ever mobile money transfer in the world happened with Safaricom. That is in a tie of an M-Pesa transactions. So, ladies and gentlemen, Safaricom PLC had an IPPO of 2008 that led to into a sale of 25% of shares to the public. When we say 25% of shares to the public, this is where the share issue was advertised and the public was allowed to be able to invest in the company, where people were so happy to be able to come on the conversation. That is in 2008, where now at least the conversation of Safaricom growing into a multi-billion company is gaining momentum, and people are able to see how their investments, they could forecast and project the growth of the investments in the Safaricom PLC company. And A lot of people went for those shares until there were no shares available. People really did their things. That is in the year 2008, and they purchased the shares, and the shares were sold at 35%. That is, by that time, I want you to understand that by that time, the government was holding 60% share stake in Safaricom PLC. So it offered 25% to the general public, that is the citizens of the Republic of Kenya, and any other person who is in the public and has an interest to purchase the 25% shares. So as of 2008, after the successful sale of 25% of shares to the general public in Safaricom PLC, the state retained 35% of the shares in Safaricom. Then Vodacom retained 40% of the shares in Safaricom, and then the public, that is the general public, limited public company PLC, what qualifies it to be a PLC, public limited company, they hold 25% shares in Safaricom. So what we are saying is, as at this time, the majority shareholder, and the law of companies is very clear. There is a majority of a shareholder who influences a decision making on the table of a company. And if a majority of a shareholder has 50 plus 1, then he has the veto powers of making a decision in a company. But as at this structure, you will find that the majority shareholder is Vodacom or Vodafone, which has 40% of shares in this PLC company. Then the government has 35% of shares, then the public has 25% of shares. That is as per the IPPO of 2008 that opened. An IPPO is where shares were listed on the Nairobi Security Exchange. 25% of shares where it allowed for the public to be able to purchase shares from the Nairobi Security Exchange. We will be able to cover how do you buy shares from a firm, how do you get those shares, where are they sold, how are they advertised, and then how do you bid for buy of shares on the Nairobi Security Exchange market. And we will be able to cover the entire Nairobi Security Exchange market, how it works, when it works, what determines the share price of a commodity on the Nairobi Security Exchange market. Perfect. So we have agreed that the government at 2008 retained 35% of shares. So up to that point, we are all understanding each other that Safaricom PLC, it came into a PLC or basing on an IPPU of 2008, where now the state retained 35% of the shares, 25 sold to the public, and 40% went to Vodafone or Vodacom company, and that is what happened. And then the government comes in now. The big question tonight. Oh my goodness. The government comes in now and says, look, we want to be able to sell 15% stake. 15% stake, basing on the calculations of the value of shares that the government holds in Safaricom. 15% share stake in Safaricom for the state is 6 billion shares. So the government will be able to sell 6 billion shares at a cost of 204 billion. That is 15% stake. So if before we proceed to annulling or to disqualifying or qualifying the point of selling the 6 billion at a cost of 204 billion, we want first to agree that if Vodacom manages to clinch a deal of purchasing 15% shares, it will become the major shareholder and a major decision maker in the company, where it will have for 55% stake. Oh my goodness gracious me. It will have 55% stake in this telco company. This telco company is a strategic asset to the government of the Republic of Kenya. Why? Safaricom holds information of the Republic of Kenya, and Safaricom facilitates transfer of payment. There are people who don't get it. The money market transfer. Anytime you are transacting from a bank to a phone, or anytime you want to make to do to be able to foot a bill in any store using a pay bill or using a money transfer, you must be able to be using an M-Pesa. And why should it be strategic? This is because the security of any given republic is threatened by terrorism activities. Terrorism activities are facilitated by funding them. Funding a terrorism activity using a bank account can easily be traced by anybody who wants to trace. But funding a terrorism activity using a money transfer formations, it's very easy. So this is the reason why the state must have control over such a strategic. And this justifies the reason why the state has been pushing Safaricom to be able to split between Safaricom as an entity and an M-Pesa as an entity, and register it under Central Bank of Kenya as a digital bank, so that they can be able to control the M-Pesa. But now that the deal has not gone through, they have decided to proceed and seize, concede, and sell the shares. Oh my goodness. So if the deal goes through, this is the danger. Your information will be in the hands of a key decision maker who is a foreigner, not a Kenyan resident. Vodacom is a South African company. We will have a conversation about Vodacom when the time comes. But if it manages to go away with this deal, it becomes the major shareholder of Safaricom PLC. And if this deal goes through, if you go, you move to the tax procedures and that is the finance bills, the latest one, then Safaricom must, if that deal goes through, and this is what the government will not come out to say, Safaricom will become, if a major holder is a foreigner, then this is a foreign company, not a Kenyan company, because you're giving them a sale of 15% shares in addition to the 40 that they are already having. So what is it that the government is pushing? What is it that is under the carpet that this government doesn't want you to know? Because you cannot tell the people you have finished a deal. You know, sometimes the reason why we say it on this space and on this podcast is that we are going to be able to make a decision not based on feelings but based on available data, information, and driven by evidence. You can't finish a deal, then tell people that, look here, the reason why people are agitated is a government that have finished a deal, then coming back and say, look here, we want to have a public participation. What are we participating on? The deal is over. You have announced the deal. You have told us it's 204 billion, an upfront of 40 billion in lieu of shares. So what is it that you want people to participate? And what are we participating on? And majorly, what is it that you want to hear from people? What is it that you want to see us speak? So those are some of the loopholes that people come up and say the government is having some officers who are not leading it in the right direction. But they are lessly interested in seeing what do they want to achieve, what are they looking for, and how are they going to achieve what they are looking for without people having to make noise. So they want to press us down slowly and calmly as we wait to see what they have to tell us, because they assume we don't have information at our disposal. So the information that is on the board here is you risk. In fact, one of the major risks is you risk even someone selling your data to a different person, because this is now going to be a foreign company. A major shareholder is going to be a South African company, not a Kenyan company. So we as a people, how are we going to be able to come out of this? And when you want to sell a share, another eggshell on the deal, when you want to sell shares, there are two ways of selling shares. You can be able to sell shares using an open premium sale of share, open premium sale of share, you will be able to sell these shares on the Nairobi Security Exchange market, where you have advertised them with a price attached. You have made a decision of the price attached on sale of your shares. And whoever will get it and make a decision to invest, they're going to invest in them. That is where you are going to sell shares to different people. One person will bid and get 5 shares, another one get 2 shares, another one get 3, another one get 4. That is when the price of that share is so low. But a block sale of a share, this is 6 billion shares being sold in a block sale, but at a price that has been determined before going public. Because if the current share at Safaricom is at 27 shillings, you cannot sell a block share at 34 shillings. Block share sale, it is supposed to attract more because you are going to sell it in a block. Not that you have a problem, maybe your child is sick and you have 2 shares, you want to sell them, and any person can get one, another one will get one because you are in need. But a block share means you're going to sell this share at once. Why don't you put this share together and let the best bidder bid and win that share? Because I'm very sure if we did bidding and we put the 15 billion shares of Safaricom to the general public to be able to bid, I want to rest assure you, my listener, my good person, my very good supporter, my very good partner in crime who is watching me, is that you could even attract even a tune of who told you that you will fail to get someone who will tell you that I'm going to pay 250 shillings per share. Let it go to the public. Because unless you have a personal interest, there is something you want to achieve, there is a person who is in behind the curtains, who has invested in Vodacom in Kenya, who wants to buy those shares through proxy. And sometimes, these things, you might think that they are impossible, but there are companies that are running in Kenya as foreign companies, but they are owned by Kenya. It's so bad. It's really bad. So unless there is someone who is having a personal interest, is when you have a predetermined mind. Is when you have 2 people who are who are giving you a case for you to be able to decide. But this is my friend and this is not my friend. So when it comes to a time for you to rule out who is wrong and who is right, you know exactly that I'm going to say who will be wrong, so that I defend the person who has called me on this case. So you will have no issue. You have a determined mind because you have personal interest on the table. This is your friend and you must stand up for your friend. It's like telling Kipchumba Murkomen that the government of the Republic of Kenya is performing poorly, discuss as a guest speaker. What do you expect from such a person? He has interest. He's a CS there. He is a friend to the president. They know each other. He must defend Kenya Kwanza government. So this is the same thing that is happening with this deal, and this deal is an eggshell. We have no problem with the government. No one is interested in becoming a president of the Republic of Kenya now, maybe in future. But now on these deals that are here, can we be able to focus on facts? Then another issue is, you've said that you've set up a national sovereignty fund where the sale of these shares are supposed to be deposited on the national sovereignty fund. We support national sovereignty fund, but has it been created? There is no motion currently in parliament. The law says for a CS to be able to establish a fund, he has the right to establish a fund anytime that person wants. That's good. What are the procedures? It is established through parliament. There is no proposal for that. And you have proceeded to seal a deal, and you're telling us that the deal for this money from this deal is supposed to proceed to be deposited in the National Sovereign Wealth Fund or National Infrastructure Fund. those funds. And Kenyans, the reason why the government is easy for creation of funds is because funds are not controlled by the control of budget, and funds, money is not dispersed through exchequer. Therefore, the oversight of a fund in the Republic of Kenya is limited and legally limited by the Constitution of Kenya because it is not controlled by the controller of budget. That's why it is very easy for these people to establish funds. And the National Sovereign Wealth Fund or the National Infrastructure Fund, I don't know, even the government itself is convinced. It doesn't know which name to give the fund, which is good. But you're saying you want to create a fund that has the capacity to procure, has the capacity to be able to undertake a visibility study, identify a project, procure the services and do that project. Just a small review. Anyway, let's assume Kenyans are not interested in maybe digging deeper and understanding the deals of selling shares. In fact, these shares should be sold. But why don't they be sold to the general public? So that let Kenyans even have majority of shares. So that if this 15 was sold to the general public, the public will control 40%. That is 25% plus 15. It will control 40%. Vodacom will be having 40%, and the government will remain with 20%, whereby now we, the public, will be able to have a say. When Vodacom is bringing issues, we will tell them, no, look, as a public, we have 40% of shares in this farm. What is it that the government feared? Not really the government, but there are people. Sometimes I feel bad when I call the government. They are just individuals whom we should just call out. Especially those ones who are pushing decisions under our throat and saying as they think, speaking in any manner that they know for them, they have the liberty and the capacity to talk to us like children. Someone tells you, what business will the government have in having shares in farms when it has 30% corporation tax in every business? 30% corporation tax is based on profit, not based on ownership. For shares, at the end of the day, we can even be able to dispose assets and pay back your shares. But for corporation tax is based on profit. So if the farm is not making profit, that's all. If it books its books of record, that's all. You will not be able to get the 30%. So when you take a platform as a certified public accountant, gone to a school of accounting and you've done taxation, and you are telling a Kenyan who has employed you, paying you a salary, and you're telling him, you what business? We are very sorry for that. So we support this government. We have ideas that we can let this government, if it gives the public an opportunity to be able to speak on such issues, there are reservations. So if they need to hear what is our input, let them cancel the deals first. Let them do away with what they have said, I don't know, at 34 shillings and defending it. Let them start from zero by saying, we want to sell 15% stake. What is your view? What do you suggest? What do you think? And we will tell you what we think. We will advise. From there, we build a deal. We will negotiate. We will tell you, look, there is a fella here who has money and he doesn't know where to invest. He has been lied to that real estate is a viable investment. He can be able to go away with those shares at once, and he's a Kenyan. Let him control 15%. Why do you fear? He will not. he will. Anyway, that's a part of life, and it's very normal. So we will have these and more engagements on this platform. Subscribe to our platform. Support us by subscribing, sharing, and let's have a conversation, a free conversation. We will not fear, because fear is better to die while you are standing than you die on your knees, because anyway, they're gonna do what they think. So how do we benefit from when they are doing what they think?